The tech note, we are now switching lanes into a Kickstarter discussion, and we shall be talking the Uganda People's Congress resurgence and of course the victory over Dr. Eunice Apio Otuko in the Oyam North by-election. What does that mean? The fact that she is the latest woman onto the political scene there, especially in terms of representation in the 11th Parliament. Oyam South, represented by another woman, the Honourable Betty Amongi, while the seat that is designated or ring-faced for women, of course, also has the Honourable Santa on it. We shall be looking at what that means for women emancipation, but a new era where women in politics ought to take center stage. We shall also be discussing the president's latest concerns about violence in elections and whether it means a new shift in Uganda's politics. Now that the man at the top is concerned, do the critics have to take back a seat and appreciate the fact that he's now concerned? And the general state of politics in the country, what does it mean? The violence, the money, and of course, other developments. I'm joined by the Executive Director at the Center for Constitutional Governance. She's also a seasoned political commentator, Sarah Bireete. You're most welcome to the program.
Thank you, and good morning, viewers.
We shall also be joined a little bit later by the Secretary General of the Uganda People's Congress, Fred Ebil. That is later on. He will be giving us the perspective of one of the oldest political parties in the country and whether it has something to look up to when it comes to 2026. Allow me to begin the conversation with Dr. Sarah Bireete and right away ask the question, what's your take on what appears to be a wave by women in Oyam, the latest being Dr. Eunice Apio Otuko taking on Oyam North by-election, dislodging the national resistance movement. I am told, or reports say, that last election, 2021, she nearly beat the former MP, now deceased, retired Colonel Okello. Does that mean the minister winning that particular seat in 2021 was a one-off for the NRM, and that actually UPC has been the captain in this particular docket?
Well, Oyam has been really home of UPC from the days of the late Ekule Park and even historically. So I think NRM had smuggled itself within the constituencies of NRM. And then, of course, you have also the complicated alliance of UPC and NRM, which did not play out well in that confrontation by the UPC president, Jimmy Akena, and Dr. Tango Doi. Yeah. But the rise of women is welcome news. I wish to congratulate the women of Oyam and the Lango in general for, you know, raising the bar for the equality question in the country. Lango has always given us, you know, astute women, right from the times of Honorable Cecilia Ogwal and the rest that are emerging, Honorable Betty Amongi and now Dr. Apio. It has always, you know, taken you know, or showed leadership on women emancipation, and it's good that now we have 100% representation by women in Oyam district. Although equality does not necessarily mean that the men shouldn't be in the picture, but one or two or three, if we can have 50-50, because women are 51% of the population. So we should have more seats than men who are 49. So I wish we could have that playing out, the 51-49 ratio in leadership as well as all other sectors, private sector, civil society, other professional groups. We need to see that 51-49% ratio playing out well in other sectors. So it's just the beginning, like the Waganda say, Gachari Mabaga.
Allow me to stay on the aspect of women emancipation here before we get into the nitty-gritty and the heat of the politics. A number of women-based organizations apparently feel that women are well represented in the region. I'll just take a story here carried by the Daily Monitor and quote a few women who've been spoken to. Here, one, Jane Francis Oling, Executive Director of Women in Development Uganda, a non-government organization, says Oyam is a case study of good practice in the entire economy. I feel the joy, the pride, the true meaning of gender transformation and empowerment that they fought for many years ago. The people of Oyam believe more in women. They also like serious people, and these females happen to be serious and qualified in terms of leadership. And of course, Oyam has also in the past, not even the past, but leaders including the Health Minister, Dr. Jane Ruth Acheng, comes from that side, Ruth Atala Adupa, a senior government official on the Health Service Commission, Honorable Beatrice Lagada. So like you said, it's a trajectory that has been on. I do not know whether it should create particular interest as a model district for benchmarking.
That's what I was about to say, that whether the women now deliver to demonstrate the pace of women leadership as a model is another thing.
Okay.
And that's their challenge now that they've been given leadership. Yeah. Whether they can take the district forward in a better way or in a transformational manner remains to be seen.
So how do you look at this trio, Eunice Apio Otuko, Betty Amongi being a minister within the workings of the National Resistance Movement? I don't know whether that poses a complication in how they will be working together, and Santa Olum Ogwang.
She remains a member of UPC, although I saw a headline that she's preparing her official crossover, the spokesperson with Terats. But I think if she remains a member of UPC, then it's the party in charge, and they need to demonstrate the old lost glory of UPC that Ugandans usually talk about.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's welcome the Secretary General of the Uganda People's Congress, Fred Ebil, to the show. A very good morning.
Good morning.
And congratulations on the UPC win in Oyam North.
Good morning, moderator. Good morning, Sarah, Dr. Sarah.
Yes.
Good morning, the viewers. I'm happy to be with you. Yeah.
There's a sentiment that has been registered that there's a wave that women are onto something in Oyam and the Greater North. And it's about time that we appreciate that. But being a party secretary general,
put it the other way, the men could be up to something uplifting women.
Okay.
Yes.
That's also another perspective.
Yes.
What's your take on of course, the election victory, but also the wave that is the women in politics there?
Yeah, I'm happy because the untold story of the women in the independence struggle has not been well documented in Uganda. Women such as Koamfilda Obanyehe, Irene Idie of Adehokok, the wife of, later on the wife of sub-county chief, Absalom Otim, who was killed by Idi Amin, the mother of former MP of Kole, Beridogo, Pulichira, so, and so many women. Cecilia,
even in the Mothers Union.
Yes, they struggled a lot to support the independence struggle. They worked a lot. These were not very educated women, but they did a lot of work. And to be honest, you know, in elections, without women support, because they're honest, you cannot win elections. So women have been at the forefront, even in the Bush War. If you talk about the 27 people they know very well in the NRA, you hear some of the women who participated in that war. They were really hardworking. So in all causes or fight for liberation, when you talk about the liberation struggle against Idi Amin, you'll find that women such as Awol Major and so many others, they were behind the scenes fighting, sometimes at the front line. So coming to politics, I don't really think it should surprise you. They've worked so hard, especially where I come from. Women worked so hard to support Dr. Apollo Milton Obote in his endeavor to fight for independence. Yeah.
All right, allow me to stay with you, Fred Ebil, being the Secretary General of the Uganda People's Congress. One would look at this particular victory and the momentum that it creates as one that gives Uganda People's Congress renewed energy in the push on its national political agenda ahead of 2026.
Yes.
Is it so, or am I being overly idealistic?
Yeah, you should say that this by-election was very important for us. It was a make or break for UPC. Remember, UPC has never lost any by-elections in Lango.
Okay.
Even for the candidate who stood under an NRM ticket, we supported him against a strong wave of FDC who were allied to NRM at that time in Oyam to stop him, but we supported him and he won the elections for Oyam Town Council as a district councillor. Then we supported Isoto, we supported Chan Patrick. We had never lost any by-elections in Lango sub-region because UPC is the strongest party in Lango. What happens is that whenever they divide votes, they're always UPC independents, so many of them. So they divide votes, and the NRM, they're always very strong, and they consolidate their support to one candidate. So they usually win the UPC flag bearer because of the disunity and then the independence candidate, the independent candidates who contest against the flag bearers also of UPC. So that has been the trend, but in Lango sub-region, UPC is the strongest party.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sarah Bireete, when you hear the Secretary General of UPC talking, you can of course not expect anything else. Do you see an opportunity for political parties, especially Uganda People's Congress, to realign and then form a credible onslaught onto the political stage once again?
First, they have to get out of the alliance. The members, I know there's a faction which is aligned with the NRM.
Okay.
I think they need, yes, he will tell us, and I don't know which side he belongs. I think for me, for any political party, to get into an unprincipled cooperation with another is not good for governance in general. If you are in an alliance or a cooperation, where is it, the document of that cooperation? What are the principles? What governs that cooperation? And how long will it take? So the UPC, as it rebuilds, I come from Bushenyi, which was originally known as a home of Obote. I know what UPC is, even today. That's the UPC I would like to see as a governance actor. But the UPC today, which neither belongs to opposition or ruling party, is really vague. And they need to get out of that vagueness to rebuild and recapture ground as a political party.
There you have it.
Yeah, Dr. Sarah, I want to appreciate you. Come from Bushenyi. You know very well the monuments you've built there in Kawohe and then in Nishaka. We've just rebuilt those monuments.
I know, so the mass support.
Yes, and you know the support that we have there. So UPC is still a very strong party countrywide. What we started with Oyam, the rebuilding of UPC, and we are rebranding it and making sure that the lost glory, we bring back the lost glory of UPC. So what was talked about, that there was an alliance, there was never an alliance with NRM. What happened was, yes,
okay.
FDC at that time requested us to nominate some MPs in the shadow government.
Yeah.
And remember also NRM requested. So when FDC wrote to us and they came to our office, the leader of opposition came to our office, Mary Akol, we gave a shadow minister. And also, the NRM did not even wait for us to discuss more about it. We just heard over the news that 2 ministers have been appointed. One was later on dropped and posted as an ambassador in Ottawa. But nevertheless, we were still discussing. So is the minister
still an active member?
Yeah, she's an active member.
On what ground?
On the ground that later on we discussed in cabinet an expanded cabinet with regional leaders, and we agreed that we shall review their participation in government later on, plus our participation with the leader of opposition periodically. So the next meeting would be in 2025 to review that, whether they should totally participate, because the argument was that they wanted to participate in the leadership of opposition as shadow ministers to help the country have policy passed, and the other side also government to help policies which are aligned to UPC of fighting poverty, ignorance and disease to pass. Increasing budget in healthcare as we did in the 60s. You remember the 24 hospitals, including the Itojo Hospital and many others. So all this, we said we shall review it in 2025, whether we should, because we are going to put a presidential candidate in 2025 to stand for UPC, as a UPC flag bearer for president of Uganda.
So internally, when the national resistance movement acted faster than you guys after that brief talk of possible collaboration, what was your reaction as a party when the minister went on to take on the job? Did you issue a protest letter to the minister as a member?
We now said we need to discuss it.
And so what you're going to discuss in 2025?
So in 2025 we are going to review it, and I want to assure you that like night follows day. UPC has been in government twice. We work better when we're in government. So we want State House. We don't want anything less. We don't want to be in shadow government or leader of opposition. We want to lead the government of Uganda in 2026. So that's why we are putting a formidable candidate to stand for president of Uganda.
Sarah Bireete, listening to the fact that there wasn't a protest letter to the top member of the party when they made the switch to serve under the national resistance movement and instead extended to 2025. Well, I don't know what the workings of the party are, but as an outsider and a seasoned commentator, does this mirror the workings of DP, or, for example, the fact that President Norbert Mao was able to sit down and even be able to work out some kind of a document on how...
Which remains a draft. Have you ever seen a signed document? It remains a propaganda document. Nobody has...
So where does that leave the Uganda People's Congress in terms of confidence building, especially when it comes to the political space?
Well, for me, I think generally parties can form alliances. But the lines must be defined. It is not, prohibited for parties to form alliances. Join and we see these alliances in other countries, especially Europe, where it's hard to attain majority in the first election for any single party. So parties forming alliances is not bad. But once you are in an alliance, what is important is to know that you can't belong in both sides. You can't basically have your cake and eat it. So you cannot have one leg in opposition and another leg in a ruling party and claim to be a normal functioning party. It does not exist. If you form an alliance, you shift and join the side of the ruling government for that period of the alliance. If you are out of the alliance, you shift because the lines are clearly drawn in a multi-party system. So parties are holding out as if we are not in a multi-party system. And that vagueness does not promote governance in general. When it comes to DP, even Oyam, the president's congratulatory message, he said, at least it is a friendly force that has won. One, it exposes the undemocratic characteristics of President Museveni, to say that if opposition wins, that is not cooperating with you, then you can't even congratulate them. That is a very terrible precedent for our country. If UPC had won, you expect a Democrat to say, yes, we concede we've lost. But say that at least it is a friendly UPC, because it is in his writing, that has won. that is really terrible for us as a country. So, and when it comes to DP, you know that DP now has about 3 factions fighting the so-called cooperation. That is a draft. I am yet to see a signed copy of that so-called memorandum. nobody has been able to produce it.
Maybe Norbert Mao will be able to show that document.
And the president said he doesn't know, including talks of transition, of dialogue. The president said he didn't know that.
At his homecoming party. Allow me transition and we'll stay relatedly on what happened in Oyam, but also on other elections, especially Bukedea LCV by-elections. The spectre of violence, the spectre of fraud, and the suspicion between political actors on who wins or how they win. The Oyam North by-election wasn't the latest case study in violence. At least it was subdued, given other examples. But we saw an altercation between Tanga Odoi, the chairman of the NRM Electoral Commission, and UPC party president. Some believe that it was that kind of aggressiveness that helped guard the vote for Uganda People's Congress in this particular election. But you were on the ground. When it comes to ballot stuffing and the accusations that were peddled, it could be hard to verify at this particular moment, now that the storm has calmed, but we do understand that this is something that happens in all elections, by-election or general. It's still happening. What was the situation on the ground?
The situation on the ground is actually, there was a lot of violence. First of all, you remember a journalist by the names of Ocheng of Shine Radio was battered by an NRM mobilizer, a local businessman, just because our candidate's song was being played, which was being played at the right time. Usually they play it, there's a time for it to be played. That
paid for
yes, paid
airtime.
for, yes. The songs, the campaign song, the jingle. Why was it played? Then he was beaten up. They did beat him. He beat him up, tortured him, battered him, left, right, and center, until the guy collapsed. So the guy was referred to Lira for better
medical attention from Anyeke Hospital, government hospital, health center. So that was a very good, very bad or dangerous indicator that things were going to get worse. Now, on election day, election night, some of our motorcycles, which were supposed to distribute our polling agents, were confiscated, and we had to release them in the night, in middle of the night. We went to the CPS. I want to thank the DPC, the RPC for cooperating. They had to release them. But there was something that happened. The briefing by the chairman, Electoral Commission, and the commission, a day before elections, obviously, they had indicated that they didn't want violence, they wanted peace to prevail. The police also re-echoed the same. Now the RDC stood up to talk and said they are going to arrest members of parliament and LC5 chairpersons who don't come from that district. In the middle of the night, they are going to remove them like they did in Soroti East. I warned them that they could have done it in Soroti East. But in Oyam, where we come from, UPC has been in power twice. We also have veterans, military veterans, who are there. You get it? Kikosi Malum, UNLA, who are there retired in the villages. Remember that thing, you don't forget how to use it, the gun. So we would summon them to counter them. So that more
one,
like vigilantes.
Yes, they abandoned that project of removing people like they did in Soroti East. In the middle of the night, getting an MP from the hotel is sleeping in, and then arresting them. Yes, house. So that was really ugly. So they stopped, and the chairman clarified that any person is allowed, so long as he's not distributing salt or distributing money in the night, he's allowed to stay anywhere in Uganda. So the law doesn't prohibit, the constitution doesn't prohibit. So the RDC was made to understand the law. So because I asked him, under which law are you going to do that? So it is possible that probably that also reduced the level of violence because they were not, the MPs were not picked and the chairpersons. So all parties had their members of parliament freely staying in their places of abode and handling the process. So that helped a bit, but during election day, problem started when the 3 polling stations were raided by armed men, putting the presiding officers under gunpoint, removing the ballot, those ballot books, yes, the books, saying that give us the booklets which are there. Then they went with the ballot books, and then they started pre-ticking, just ticking in the car.
The army?
Yes, those people were whatever they were. And confiscating all people's phones, so that is not documented. But lucky enough, most of them had 2 phones, so they called. Chairman Electoral Commission came in, and Commissioner Tashobia, again allow me to praise this commission, Electoral Commission, as one of the best. The chairman went physically there, and with all his commissioners and the supervisors, they made sure that they reject the ballots which were stuffed, which anyway they did not fold. You could see them, 450 ballots pre-ticked and dumped there. Yes, and ticked in the polling station in the vehicle.
But what is the source of those ballots?
What happened is the chairman said we shall start voting afresh. And in all those polling stations, we knew we were going to win, we won. So that means some other sub-counties where we had no strong people, like Icheme, we believe there was a lot of ballot stuffing that happened there.
Okay, that's interesting.
So that was the only problem that we saw.
Sarah, when you hear the kind of violence being described, it is a case of subdued violence.
But allow me also to
away
comment
from
something.
the normal.
Allow me to comment something.
Very quickly.
You talked about the president. Our party president played a very significant role. Not only the exchange with Tango Doi. Throughout the night,
was a highlight.
Throughout the night, he was the one. Throughout the campaigns, first of all, the rallies, he was the one who summoned all his troops, all his members of parliament, LC5 chairpersons, to help him campaign for his candidate, and also messaging and meetings and making sure that the protection machinery is there in place, and ensure that in the night there was no that kind of violence. He moved around.
Okay.
So in other words, he did a lot of work, and we thank him as a leader to deliver this victory. All
right, Sarah Bireete, the Oyam by-election came on the backdrop of Bukedea LCV by-election that was marred with a lot of violence and drama that prompted the president to write a letter expressing his concerns about the fact that he's also perhaps either tired of all these, goings on in terms of accusations of the NRM being fraudulent, using the military and the police structures to its advantage. Do you think this kind of tone from the president was able in subduing the level of violence in Oyam, or it was something of political drama?
Let me first comment on 2 things that the Secretary General of UPC has mentioned.
Okay.
The first is the role of the Electoral Commission. Electoral Commission is charged with the mandate of conducting free and fair, credible elections. Ballot papers are materials of Electoral Commission with security features that are supposed to be protected, delivered at the right time, in the right place, by Electoral Commission to conduct credible elections. If people in the car have booklets of ballot papers to pre-tick and the ballot stuff, where do they get them from?
No, he said they picked them
They picked them from the presiding
These ones actually came and picked
presiding officers are
the
officers of the Electoral Commission.
Yes.
They were put under gunpoint.
Yes. Under gunpoint?
Yes.
They should report.
That's why they were...
I know the vulgarization that happens in the Electoral Commission.
They made a report.
Yes. Okay. But in Sorato, we had seen a by-election where a whole booklets of pretty videos of,
they were brought in.
Yes. So for me, I want to condemn the Electoral Commission for intentionally leaking their own ballot papers for people to rig elections. They are the first causes of confusion in our elections. I don't want to take away the credit. There are things they do right. But these ballot papers are not supposed to be in circulation. Where they come from, Electoral Commission is the first point to blame. And they need to put their act together. On the letter of the president, it's on record that the Supreme Court of Uganda has confirmed rigging in 3 election petitions where President Museveni has emerged victorious. In 2001, it's on record that 3 judges, including Justice Odochu, who later deferred with the overall decision of court, confirmed the confusion created by security agencies in our elections in Uganda, including ballot stuffing, intimidation, rigging, and all that kind of thing. In 2006, the same court confirmed the violence in elections. They have only felt shy of overturning elections, hiding behind the substantiality that the rigging did not alter the results in a substantial manner. Decisions that have been overtaken by the decision in Kenya and Malawi and other courts in that manner, because if the constitution provides for a standard of an election that you should hold, once it falls short, it does not matter what impact it has. So the Supreme Court of Uganda needs to stop hiding behind the substantiality clause to endorse, you know, election rigging and vulgarization of our democracy in this country. So election violence has been happening in this country since 2001, and it has been on the increase by security forces commanded by the president, President Museveni, who is the commander-in-chief of this country. He's the biggest beneficiary of the violence caused by security forces in this country. So when he wakes up to condemn the violence in Oyam, and he described it in his letter that it's as if he was watching a film. He needs to know that Ugandans have been treated to this film since 2001, and he's the latest person to watch the so-called film. So Ugandans have been watching this film.
Wow, okay.
For 20 years, and that's how he gets to be re-elected, through the film.
We shall go, yeah.
His actions should have come as after 2001 elections. He's waking up late, but does he mean business? Are we going to see the punishment for all the people that have caused violence in elections? Are we going to get justice? We are going to celebrate 3 years of the 1911 Kampala massacre. 3 years. It's going to make 3-year anniversary on 19th, 18th, 19th November in 2023. I don't think any officer has been punished for the killings on Kampala streets.
Sarah Bireete, allow me go for a short break, and I'll return and ask the UPC Secretary General whether he believes the president's new tone on violence in elections is anything that gives hope that things are due to turn around, or whether it is a case of simply the latest series of politicking. Time now for a short break, but do stay with us. The Kickstarter discussion continues right after. We'll be right back.
TV.
Welcome back. We're glad you're still with us. For those that went with us into the break, if you're just joining us, we are at the Kickstarter segment of Morning at NTV. We are discussing the significance of the latest political wave in Oyam district, the fact that women are at the fore. And now we have all the representatives of the district as women. What does that represent? The speakers have talked about that and exactly where Oyam will be heading. Whether it's a model district for women emancipation is something that people will have to look into. But allow me go to the Secretary General of the Uganda People's Congress and ask whether the president's latest missives on election violence, allegations of fraud, are genuine concerns coming from a head of state and a party leader who wants a change in the conduct of politics, or it is nothing of the sort. What is your take, and how do you look at what he's saying?
Before I go there, let me first thank our candidate, Dr. Eunice. She was very organized. Her message was very clear. The message inspired so many people, young and old, able and disabled, to get up, support her until they went and voted, in spite of all the squabbles and the problems that were there, including the weather, bad weather, the rain. people went and voted for her because they really needed change. So she was the change candidate.
Wow.
She was a good candidate, very organized. Coming back to the letter of the president, I don't want to say it was very hopeful, but somehow it made us to not to see the kind of extra violence that we saw in maybe Bukedea, in Soroti, because the security forces were a bit cautious. But as you saw, as you heard also, that they still put presiding officers at gunpoint, meaning that some did not still listen to the president's warning. So there is need for also, I think the training of the security forces is not good. It's a bit partisan. So we need to discuss it under IPOD to see how the security forces are trained. Maybe they tell them, if you're in opposition, you are an enemy of Uganda. So probably because some of them operate like NRM agents. So there is need to go back to the training of the soldiers, the police, the prison officers, all those security officers, including DSOs, ISOs, whatever. We need to look at their training. What is their ideological training that they always talk of, ideological orientation? They may be taking them.
That
is where the problem starts from. So we need to look at the training. Because you remember in UPC, when we started training new soldiers, the National Army at Nakasongola, we were training them to be a national army, but not a partisan army. So we need to go back there and see the training that they get.
Sarah Bireete, your reading of history is a little bit more entrenched than mine. Is Fredo Bill suggesting that the Uganda People's Congress, while in power, did not leverage on the use of violence as a state? Or there were aspects of violence that were orchestrated by the state?
If you look at, I think we can use President Museveni's allegations for going to the bush as a baseline. If you look at what happened then, the president, as a candidate of UPM, was able to conduct all his campaigns. He was never arrested at any single campaign. But under his regime, he arrests people going for nomination. He beats up candidates when they are declared presidential candidates. You are beaten, your suits are torn, you arrest people. General Muntu's campaigns were disrupted 46 times in the last elections. Amuriat, as a presidential candidate, was arrested 53 times. Him as a UPM candidate, he was never arrested. He did his nomination peacefully. He did his campaigns peacefully. He was, I think he was stopped once on a roadblock after elections, according to his own story. So if you compare the two really, where is violence? Where is violence? He's a master of violence.
That stopping happened before UPC came to power. It was during that period when he was a vice chairman of the commission. He was
yes,
like a vice president.
He was like a vice president. He was a vice president of Paul Mwanga. And they were in interim power with the figureheads, the three presidents, as they were waiting to take office.
All right, we can debate that until the chickens come back to roost. But allow me just pick your minds on the latest, not wave, but happenings on the political scene, the transition to the National Unity Platform of Auntie's Paul Mwiru. It's okay to change to where you are loved, where you're wanted, or where your political aspirations align to the purpose that you want ahead of 2026. Are you surprised? First, very quickly.
I'm not surprised because, like water, it will always look for where to move. So politics is like that. People move on, and I wish him good luck. I wish him well in his new party. I only pray that it should not make us backslide in terms of politics, because we don't want to go back to the period where people used to cross in the morning, tomorrow they cross to another party. That is what actually destroyed our politics in the past. The issues of crossing, and I think in our Secretary General's meeting with the President, he was very categorical about it. He told us he looks down onto people who cross from one party to the other.
Okay.
It means they are not ideologically well grounded. So if I remember that, and I see him also inviting people to cross to his party, sometimes I wonder whether he talks what he means. He means what he talks, and
Sarah Bireete, wrap this up for us. What's your take on Paul Mwiru?
Well, freedom of association means that you have freedom to change your association and political belonging. So he's enjoying his political rights as an individual. But if you look at the wave in Uganda and Busoga, the National Unity Platform wave, I think he has decided to side with the leading political party, opposition political party in his region. Okay. So as for his personal reasons, I'm not yet aware, but he's within his political rights.
All right, Sarah Bireete, Executive Director at the Center for Constitutional Governance and Political Analyst, many thanks for making it to the show. Many thanks to you too, Ebil, Secretary General of the Uganda People's Congress. We don't have a lot of time, but the debate could go on.